My wife spent my money like it was endless, then secretly flew to Miami, leaving me and our kids behind. Now, she's back. And begging me to take her back. My wife Meredith and I, both 38, have been married for the past 10 years, together for almost 13. Fairly normal relationship with no affairs, no major misunderstandings, and even our families get along well together. We also have 2 wonderful kids together, a 7-year-old daughter and our 5-year-old son. Both of us come from pretty similar financial backgrounds. Our parents brought us up comfortably, but we were not spoiled. So I really don't understand how she picked this habit of being a spendthrift whenever she thought that she could afford it, even a little bit. I guess that's been my only gripe with her throughout the course of our relationship, that sometimes she doesn't understand that we shouldn't splurge as soon as we get some money, but she's from the "it's just money" school of thought. And that's one thing that we've always kind of been in disagreement about. But it's never been a big enough deal for us to seriously fight about it, and we've almost always just let it go. This only started turning into a big deal a year ago when I was promoted to the CFO position in my company, and that came with a pretty significant pay raise. Obviously, I told Meredith about what my income is going to be like, and I remember that I had told her that just because I was getting a raise didn't mean that we could start living beyond our means all of a sudden. But I don't think she heard me, because soon after my promotion, she started splurging pretty often. It started with shopping sprees. Then she started making luxury purchases from big brand names on my money, and even went to the extent of redecorating our house and getting rid of all our perfectly good furniture so she could replace everything with brand new and trendy stuff. You guys can obviously imagine how much that must have cost me, because she was not contributing a single dollar to any of these expenses, even though she's a working woman herself. The only difference is that she is a high school teacher and works shorter hours in comparison to me, since I'm in corporate, and I have to admit that she takes care of most of the household chores, as well as spends the most amount of time with our kids, and that was also her defense in the beginning. She said that she was sick of just working all day long, and she felt like she deserved a reward as well for everything that she had done, because when I would have to work late into the night and go away frequently on work trips before my promotion, she would be the holding down the fort at home, and with 2 young kids, it was not something easy to accomplish either. I could understand where it was coming from, so even though I would try to get her to cut down on her reckless expenditures, I didn't actually do anything to try and stop her, except just talk to her and hope that she would understand my concern. But she didn't, and everything just kept getting worse. She just kept spending more and more money, and I'm not a miser, but every time I would try to talk to her about her spending habits, she would make me feel like one, and she would make me feel so guilty for stopping her. Recently, we had been fighting a lot over our finances, because even though I was making good money ever since my promotion, we had hardly been able to save anything because of her exorbitant expenditure. Then last week, she crossed all limits, because when I came back home from work, I noticed that the babysitter had been called, and instead of Meredith, she was looking after the kids. I was obviously very confused, because we usually only call the babysitter when both of us have to be out, and she hadn't told me anything about going out that day, which she usually does, even if it's just to go out with her friends for brunch or whatever, and I do the same for her. I tried to call her a couple of times, but I couldn't get through to her, so I had the babysitter explain what was going on, and she told me that apparently Meredith had paid her to stay with her kids for a week day and night, and it left me feeling even more confused since I had no idea what was going on. I let her handle the kids while I kept trying to get through to Meredith and her parents, but none of them were picking up my calls. I even tried to talk to her friends, but they didn't know what was going on either. Eventually, after almost 3 hours of trying, she finally picked up my call, and I totally put her on blast immediately because her behavior was very erratic, and I deserve an explanation for what was going on. And she told me that the reason she couldn't respond earlier was because she was on a flight, and so were her parents, since they had decided to take a family vacation to Miami. So none of them had been able to respond to me, and she didn't even think that she needed to elaborate. So I literally had to ask her why on earth had she left me and the kids behind and gone to Miami with her parents without even speaking to me about it first. I already knew that she intended on staying there for a week, because that's what the babysitter had told me, and I started grilling her, but she did not take it kindly. Instead, she told me that I had no business speaking to her like that, because she had done everything in her power to make sure that her family was always content, but now it was time for her to do stuff for her parents as well. I tried to tell her that I didn't have a problem with her doing stuff for her parents, but the fact that she hadn't even thought it was important to discuss this with me first, that's what really bothered me. That had been the case for the past year. She never consulted me before making any major financial decisions, but she just cut me off rudely, telling me that she needed and deserved a break, and then she hung up. I tried to call her a couple of more times, but she did not respond, and that was the last straw for me. I had been putting up with her behavior for a pretty long time. I couldn't do this anymore. So I made a few calls immediately afterwards and arranged for her cards to be blocked. The only one that worked was her own, and after it was confirmed that the cards were blocked, I started to receive phone calls and messages from her, but I muted all notifications. I then called up my friend and had him put me in touch with his divorce lawyer, explained the situation to him, and told him that he immediately needed to start drawing up divorce papers for me because I had had enough. 2 days after that, she came back home, and when I opened the door, she immediately started telling me that she was really sorry about her behavior because she hadn't realized that I would feel so hurt about it. She told me that she had hopped onto the next available flight to come back home to me as soon as she had realized the gravity of her mistake, and she would have actually come back earlier, but unfortunately, due to some storms, all flights back home had been canceled, which is why she and her parents had to wait. But now that she was finally back here, she was ready to talk to me and explain her side of the story so we could work the situation out. It was too late though, because the previous evening, my lawyer had already handed over the divorce papers to me for signing, and I just shoved those papers at her, and I told her that she needed to take care of this because I was done with her. While she was still reading those papers, I shut the door, and a couple of seconds later, she started screaming at me, banging on the door, and begging me to open it, and telling me that I couldn't do this over and over again. It hurt me a lot to do that to her, but honestly, I just couldn't take it anymore. Thankfully, our kids did not have to witness their mother breaking down like that, and neither did they have to see me ignore her while she was going through it because I had sent them away to stay with my parents for a couple of days since I just knew that something of the sort was going to happen. Meredith kept banging on the door for about 15 minutes before she finally tired out and left, presumably to go back to her parents. Since then, for the past week, she has been trying relentlessly to get me to talk to her, but I have her muted everywhere. I haven't yet blocked her because we still have the kids to think of, and at some point, even if I do block her right now, I'm gonna have to unblock her, so it seems pointless. I have read a couple of messages out of curiosity, and it's been a mixed bag. Sometimes she's just apologizing to me profusely about what he did, not just about this recent incident, but about everything that has been happening. She's been promising me that she's going to try and bring her expenses under control and not be so reckless with our finances. This is most of the time, but occasionally, there is some text where she's telling me that I'm being ruthless and that I can't throw away 13 years of our relationship and a decade of our marriage over something like this, that we can still work this out if I want to, but it's just that I have to want to sort things out with her right now. It feels like she's the only one willing to forgive and forget. Recently, she sent me a message telling me that she could understand that I was mad at her, and rightfully so, but at the end of the day, we had 2 kids together, and we also had to think about their welfare. She said that I was becoming too egoistic, and instead of thinking about them, I was only thinking about myself and the fact that she had made me mad. But under ordinary circumstances, most people try to work these things out, instead of just for a divorce, and I don't know why, but that message really stuck with me, probably because she mentioned the kids. So now, all of a sudden, I found myself reevaluating the entire situation, and I've started to think that maybe I'm being too hard on her. It's not like the whole thought of divorce hasn't taken a toll on me. As well, I'm obviously very difficult to come to terms with it, but I have to admit, I don't think I've been taking the kids into consideration as much as I should have been. I've been meeting them at my parents' place, and I'm trying to keep the situation under control, but I know that they're unhappy, and they'll be even more unhappy without their mother in their life, because in spite of all her faults, she is a pretty good mom. She wasn't lying when she said that she had always tried to make sure that everybody in our family was happy, so maybe I'm making a rash decision. IDA for filing for divorce so soon? Update 1. Hey, so after going through the comments, I realized that there are a lot of things that I still need to talk to my wife about before jumping to such a huge decision. And not just the people in the comments, even my friends and family agree that speaking to my wife might do us good. So yesterday I decided to reach out to her, and I told her that I would be willing to meet her for lunch and talk. We decided to keep the kids out of this, even though she really missed them and wanted to see them, because of practical reasons. I don't think we'd have been able to talk if they had been around, but I have told her that she can go visit my parents anytime she wants in case she wants to see them. Coming to what we talked about, it was very awkward at first, but then she jumped right into it and started apologizing to me for everything. She explained to me her side of things and told me that she thought I was always being very stingy with money instead of just trying to enjoy our lives. But the truth is, she really did have a problem with overspending, and for so long, she had been in denial of it because she thought of herself as the perfect wife, and she was not willing to admit that this was a problem that she had. Besides, she also felt like due to my work, I would never be able to spend enough time with my family or at home, and in some messed up way, she was always just trying to keep herself occupied since she was really lonely, and that was something that we had discussed before. She was a high school teacher, and even though her hours were relatively shorter, she would have to spend the rest of her time at home every day because she didn't have a lot of friends. All her other friends would either stay busy during the week or all the weekends. She really wanted to spend time with us because those were the only days that I would get to spend with my family. This is why she hadn't exactly been able to develop any meaningful friendships with anyone over the past 10 years after we got married and had our kids and whatever he had before that. They started drifting apart, and now she only gets to meet them occasionally. She told me that she thought that she was compensating for all that loneliness and boredom by going shopping because retail therapy is the one thing that actually did bring her a lot of happiness. She got busy with redecorating our house, shopping sprees and pledges, and all that stuff because it kept her busy, and for some reason, she used to feel like she had done something productive with her time and money. It's just that she never seemed to realize that she would go over the normal limits of spending, and that's what led to so many fights between us. She told me that she was really sorry about it, and said that she should have spoken to me about it, but she found it very difficult to admit to herself even that this was an actual problem now. She had started crying while telling me this, and I could actually understand just how lonely she had become because it's true that after marriage and kids, she hardly had any time for herself. And I have to acknowledge the fact that a large part of this, if not all, was because of all the sacrifices that she had made for me and our family. When we had our eldest, she cut down on so much time with her friends and family because somebody had to stay home in the evenings and finish up all the work at home, because when I would come back home, it would be pretty late, and it would be almost impossible to split the chores or hand over the responsibilities of our baby to me because that's how exhausted I would be. And then, when we had our second child, she went above and beyond to handle 2 kids and the responsibility of the household so that I wouldn't face any trouble. Of course, it was teamwork, but she was still part of the team and she did her role amazingly well. So while we were talking, it really hit me that we have spent 10 years of our life together, making sure that our family was happy. I decided that I just couldn't throw away all those years together randomly, just because I was upset about something. Yes, I was angry, and I was extremely hurt by her behavior, but she was acknowledging the problem here, and she was willing to change. So I decided that I owed it to her and our kids to at least try and make this marriage work. I tried to calm her down while she was crying, and I told her that I was willing to work on our marriage, but for now, I believe that it would be for the best if we spent a couple of days apart just to cool off. And she agreed. We were both being realistic because we had just had a huge disagreement, probably one of our biggest because, of course, I literally went ahead and spoke to a lawyer. That's a huge deal, and I think some time apart to reflect on our behavior will do us some good. But I couldn't expect her to stay away from the kids for that long. So of course I had to tell her that they were staying with her in-laws, and I told her that she could go visit them anytime that she pleased. She was pretty happy with my decision, and we ended the meeting on a good note. We also decided that exactly 1 week later, we were going to meet again, and in the meantime, I was going to speak to my lawyer so I could cancel the divorce proceedings. Update 2. Hi, so Meredith and I met again yesterday. We have stayed in touch for the past week, and both of us have acknowledged that our marriage is not perfect. It hasn't been that way for a very long time, and that we really need to work on it. So together, we decided that we were going to see a marriage counselor, but somehow we were going to make it work. And it shouldn't be a difficult task, given the fact that both of us agree that we still love each other. As long as we can agree on that one thing, it doesn't matter what we're going through, we can sort it all out. This past week that we spent apart really gave me a lot of insight and a lot of time to think about how I had spent most of my life. She was not wrong about anything. I did spend a lot of time at work, and she did spend a lot of money. Both of us were being excessive in one way or the other, and it had taken a toll on our marriage, to the point where we were considering divorce. That obviously needed to change, like I mentioned in my last update, and I really feel grateful for the fact that so many people supported my decision. Obviously, there are still a lot of people who think that I'm doing the wrong thing, and have told me that I'm a doormat for even thinking about giving our marriage another chance after what she did. But it doesn't matter, because after all, she is the mother of my child, and we have been together for a very long time. One fight is not going to be enough to change that. Besides, we're not just doing this for ourselves, we are doing this for our kids as well. They need both of us in our lives, that's for sure. And I've already spoken about my decision at length and explained why I came to this conclusion. Neither of us was perfect. Now that we have acknowledged that there was a problem with both of us, we are just trying to address it. If that makes people unhappy, it's okay. After all, you guys are only getting to know whatever information I'm providing you with, but it's me who has actually been in this relationship for so many years, and I know what I'm doing is for the best. In no way am I discounting anybody's advice or life experiences, but I'm just saying that a handful of people being unhappy about my decision on a site like this is not going to change or influence it anyhow, that's all. Having said that, I'm very happy about what I have chosen to do. After we met yesterday, after our 1-week break, both of us were in a much better mood and we hugged as soon as we saw each other. From that hug, I instantly knew that I was doing the right thing because it was clear that neither of us was ready to let us go. Not surprisingly, she's been the first proper love of my life, and it's been the same day for her as well. It's just that we lost touch with each other in our relationship while trying to juggle our careers, family, and all that stuff. Like people say, life got in the way, but no worries because she's finally moved back in. She came back this morning, and I brought back my kids from my parents' house as well. Now we are all living as one happy family under the same roof again, and that's how I want it to be for the rest of our lives. I know that these past 2 weeks have been incredibly tough on all of us, but mostly on the kids. At least Meredith and I are grown-ups, we can deal with our emotions much better than they can. And as much as my kids love their grandparents, they still missed us both a lot, and I could just see the happiness on their faces when we were all back together again, and I don't want to ever put them through something like this again. Just knowing that I'm doing what is best for our family, that's what makes it easier to forgive Meredith. Yesterday, while we were talking, both Meredith and I agreed that what she had done was really not okay. And she told me that the only reason she had left without telling me was because she knew that I would not be fine with it, and she felt like she shouldn't have to ask for permission from anyone since she's a grown woman. So we worked through that as well, since it was not about asking for my permission, but just being transparent with me and taking our family into consideration, which she hadn't done. She apologized for it once again, and I told her that I was ready to let it go and have a fresh start. That's how we ended up together again, and even today, a couple of hours ago, we ended up talking to each other after the kids had fallen asleep, and once again, she apologized to me for being so inconsiderate, especially over the past year. She ended up crying again, and once again, I comforted her, and we made a lot of promises to each other. This time we're going to make sure that we live up to it and don't forget about each other, especially about our kids, while leading our lives, because that has been the worst mistake of our lives. We can't let this happen again, and we have to make sure that we do everything to avoid it. Update 3. Almost 6 months have passed since my last update, and I was waiting to hit this mark on purpose before I posted anything, because even after my last update, there were a lot of people who were telling me that this was not going to work, and I'm screwing up by giving this woman another chance. I was called various names in the comments like doormat and pushover, and some people even took the trouble to reach out to me after my post. Anyway, it doesn't matter because 6 months have passed, and we have been in couples counseling, and we have been working out our issues. And guess what? It's all been working in our favor. We have never been happier together, and most importantly, the kids seem to be doing better than ever as well. We are not constantly bickering or taking subtle digs at each other like we used to, without even realizing it, and we had no idea that it had even been affecting our kids because we ourselves didn't think it was a big deal. But slowly, we started working on that as well, and instead of bottling up our issues, acting out like juvenile kids and stuff, we just started addressing it directly with each other, and that has made all the difference. Of course, we do have to make an effort to sometimes keep our cool, and sometimes it's healthier to just let it all out and get into a proper fight. But then, at the end of the day, we are still together, and we have managed to work things out with each other every single time. That's what really matters to us. Everybody in our lives is pretty happy that we did not go through with the divorce, especially our parents, because even though they hadn't exactly been against the idea, initially they did come around to the fact that maybe it was too harsh. And I think getting a divorce wouldn't have made either of us happy. We would have just stayed miserable, and I'm not saying that staying together is the solution for everyone, to each their own, but I think our best bet was just to stay together and work things out. I've kept all my promises to her as well, and so has she. I've cut down on the time that I spend at work, and have been making more of an effort to spend more time with my family, going for weekend trips and stuff, going out for dinner with Meredith, and hanging out with the kids. Slowly, I'm starting to realize how much I've been missing out on, and I don't think the rat race is worth your family, if I'm being very honest. This might affect or even slow down my progress at my company, and I might be looked over for promotions in the future, but I don't care. I'm going to dedicate as much time to my work as I need to, but I'm not going to let it take over my life. And Meredith has decided to start living her life better as well. Instead of devoting all her time to our family and doing nothing for herself most of the time, and then splurging in one go, she has started to occasionally hang out with her friends and has taken up new hobbies, and she practices self-care too. It's a welcome change. She seems much happier and doesn't have any trouble with overspending anymore either. In short, all of us are much happier now than we were 6 months back or even earlier than that, and we are all just really happy that we made the decision to stick together. Update 4. Hey everyone. More than a year has passed since my last update, and in a couple of weeks, Meredith and I are going to be hosting a party and a ceremony to renew our marriage vows. The past few months have been amazing, and in honor of that, we have decided to renew our vows because we think it's the right time to do it. It's going to be a much grander ceremony compared to our wedding, since now we really can afford to splurge. Back when we originally got married, both of us were just starting out in our careers, and we relied heavily on our parents to cover the expenses of our wedding, so we couldn't make it too big, because that would be kind of unreasonable of us. This time, though, we are kind of splurging a little, and thankfully, at least now, even though I'm on the same page as her, because we deserve this, we've earned it. But that's not even the best part, because yesterday, she presented me with a pair of very expensive platinum cufflinks and told me that she had been waiting until the event to give me her gift, but she just couldn't wait because she wanted to see the look on my face. Just for the record, they were very expensive, and she makes a lot less money than I do. And it's not even about the materialistic value of the thing, it's the sentimental value, because I knew that it must have burned a hole in her purse, but she still went ahead and did it. She told me that she was really grateful that she had me in her life, because any other man in my place probably wouldn't have taken her back after what she had done, but I did. I thought about her and the family, and I put us first. And she just wanted to let me know that she was very thankful for everything that I had done for her. So this was her small token of appreciation for me. I'm not much of an emotional guy, but I ended up crying and getting very emotional because it's been an uphill climb regarding our relationship, and now we are finally at a place where we feel like everything is amazing. Also, I'm not complaining, but most of the time I've always been the one who is the giver of such expensive gifts, not just to Meredith but everybody else in my family too. Hardly have I ever been at the receiving end. So quite naturally, it was a huge deal for me, and I told Meredith exactly how thankful I was for her. I also told her that at the end of the day, we were a team, and for us, it was always going to be family first. I said it to her, and I'll say it here as well. I'm more than grateful to have her in my life,